All right, so you're getting ready for a control panel tester interview.
Exciting stuff.
We're going deep on this one.
Yeah.
Using RoleCatcher's guides, their question repository, everything we can to help you nail this thing.
Yeah, like having a whole team of experts kind of in your corner.
Yeah, exactly. Turning you into a control panel testing ninja.
I love that.
So first things first, what exactly does a control panel tester do? It's got to be more than just flipping switches, right?
Oh yeah, way more. You bet think Blueprint Detective meets electrical puzzle solver. They're the guardians of these complex systems, making sure everything's wired up right and operating safely.
So where do these guardians usually hang out?
You'll find them in all sorts of places, from buzzing manufacturing plants to high-tech construction sites. It's a job that keeps you on your toes.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, every job has its pros and cons. What's the catch here?
Well, those long testing hours can be demanding, and the work might get a little repetitive at times.
Sure.
But hey, the job stability is excellent because those panels aren't going anywhere. Plus, you're working with some seriously cool tech, and the salary's nothing to sneeze at.
Okay, so there's definitely a trade-off, but let's get to the heart of it, those interview questions.
Absolutely.
This is where RoleCatcher really shines.
It does.
You can actually tailor your answers to the specific job you're after.
Right.
Their AI analyzes the job description, and it'll highlight what's missing from your resume, or suggests improvements to boost your chances of getting shortlisted.
Yeah.
Plus, you can practice your responses, get feedback, almost like having a personal coach to polish your delivery.
Amazing.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So let's dive into some of those questions. What are some common ones I might throw your way?
A classic one is describe your experience testing control panel systems. This is your chance to showcase your hands-on expertise, not just general knowledge.
Okay, so how do you avoid just listing off every single thing you've ever done?
Think specific tools and techniques, using multimeters, oscilloscopes, loop calibrators. You could even mention a challenging project where your skills were put to the test.
Right.
For instance, in my previous role, I was responsible for testing a complex panel for a robotic arm.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
It really paints a picture.
it does.
What about those programmable logic controllers?
Yes.
The infamous PLCs.
The PLC,
I bet those come up a lot.
all the time. You bet they do. They'll probably ask you something like, can you describe your experience with PLC systems?
Okay.
Now's the time to name drop those specific models or brands you've worked with.
Like a pro?
Like a pro, exactly.
So instead of just saying, I'm comfortable with PLCs, you'd say something like, I have extensive experience with Allen Bradley and Siemens PLCs, particularly the Latage, and then list some models.
Exactly. It shows you're not just familiar with the concept, but you've actually got hands-on experience with these specific systems.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting, the safety questions.
Yeah.
This is serious business, right?
Sure.
How do you suggest tackling a question like, how do you ensure that control panel systems meet industry standards and regulations?
Safety is paramount in this field. You need to brush up on those regulations like OSHA and NFPA and describe your meticulous process for ensuring compliance. Maybe you have a checklist that you follow religiously or use specific software for documentation. Show them you don't mess around with safety.
So don't just mention the regulations, but actually explain how you apply them in your work.
Yeah.
And maybe even give an example, like I always double check the grounding connections against NFPA 70 requirements, that kind
You're
of
getting
thing.
it. It's all about showcasing your knowledge in action.
Okay, now let's talk about problem solving.
Yeah.
They're bound to ask you something like, how do you approach debugging and troubleshooting issues within a control panel system? This is where you get to shine as that control panel tester.
Yeah, think of it like you're solving a mystery. You're the detective. Describe your step-by-step approach to identifying the root cause of the problem.
Right.
Do you start with visual inspections? Are there specific diagnostic tools you use?
Uh-huh.
Do you have a method for isolating faults?
Okay.
Highlight how you stay calm and collected when the pressure's on.
So they're looking for someone who's methodical, analytical, and cool under fire.
Exactly.
What other technical questions might they throw your way?
They might ask about HMI systems. Those are the interfaces that operators use. Or about ensuring control panels meet project requirements. You're familiar with electrical schematics, documentation procedures, even test automation tools. It all adds up to show you're a well-rounded pro.
Whew. There's a lot to cover. It sounds like RoleCatcher's AI could be a lifesaver.
Oh, it's a game changer, especially when it comes to tailoring your answers. Let's say the job description emphasizes PLC programming.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's AI will pick up on that and suggest ways to weave your PLC experience into your responses, making them super relevant to what that employer is looking for.
So you're not just giving like a generic answer, you're giving an answer that hits the bullseye.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What about practicing those answers? Can RoleCatcher help with that too?
Absolutely. It's like having a personal coach giving you feedback on your responses, pointing out where you can be clearer, add more detail, or even adjust your tone. They even offer video practice with AI so you can work on your on-camera confidence.
Wow. It's like taking your interview prep to a whole new level.
It is.
But it's not all about the interview, right?
No.
What about the bigger picture, the career path? Where can a control panel tester go from here?
RoleCatcher's career guide maps out the possibilities. It shows you how to climb that career ladder. You could become a senior tester, an electrical engineer, even a project manager with the right experience and training.
So even if you're starting at entry level, there's potential to move up.
Yeah.
What would you recommend for someone just breaking into the field?
Internships or apprenticeships are gold. They give you that hands-on experience that employers crave.
Okay.
And once you're in, never stop learning.
Right.
Take advanced courses, stay up to date on codes, build a killer portfolio.
Right. So continuous learning is key.
It is.
Any other tips for staying ahead of the curve?
Network like a champ.
Okay.
Go to industry events, join professional groups, connect online. You never know what opportunities might pop up. Remember, you're in control of your career trajectory.
That's some solid advice. But let's circle back to those interview questions for a sec.
Okay.
We've covered some general ones, but are there any specific curveballs we should be ready for?
Absolutely. They might get super specific, like asking about your experience with particular testing equipment or software.
So they might say something like, what experience do you have using a loop calibrator, or have you ever worked with fluke testing equipment, that kind of thing?
Exactly. Don't just say yes. Go deeper. Discuss specific models, types of tests, even challenges you overcame.
Okay.
It shows them you really know your stuff.
So it's all about showcasing that expertise. What other areas might they dig into?
They might reel you on specific industry standards, like describe your experience with applying the UL 508A standard, or how do you ensure compliance with NEC Article 409.
That's where those pre-interview study sessions really come in handy. You've got to be rock solid on those regulations and how you apply them on the job.
Right. Don't be shy about using examples from past projects. It shows you can connect the dots between theory and practice.
Now let's get back to troubleshooting.
Okay.
I bet they'll try to really test your problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
What kind of questions should we brace ourselves for?
Picture this. They hit you with a hypothetical scenario like, imagine you're testing a control panel and you notice a voltage drop across a component. How would you troubleshoot that?
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
It really puts you on the spot. How should someone approach that?
First, take a breath. It's okay to gather your thoughts, then walk them through your step-by-step process for isolating the problem, mentioning the tools and techniques you'd use, and your reasoning behind each choice.
So you're basically showing them how your brain works, how you analyze a problem and find a solution.
Exactly. It's way more impressive than just spouting off a memorized answer.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and talk about career progression again.
Okay.
We mentioned earlier that there are different paths for a control panel tester. Could you unpack those options a little bit more?
Sure. One path is specialization. Maybe you become a PLC programming guru or focus on testing industrial automation systems. You find your niche and become a sought-after expert.
So it's about honing your skills and becoming the go-to person in a particular area.
Right. Another option is climbing the management ladder. You could start as a team lead and eventually become a project manager or even a department head.
So from hands-on testing to leading a whole team, that's quite a journey.
It is, and this path usually requires additional education or certifications, think master's degrees or specialized training. But if you're ambitious and driven, it can be incredibly rewarding.
And of course, there's always the entrepreneurial route,
Oh, yeah.
starting your own business.
Absolutely. With enough experience and the right mindset, you could launch your own control panel testing or consulting firm. It's a path that offers a lot of freedom and flexibility, but it also comes with its own unique set of challenges.
So you can say the sky's the limit in this field.
It is.
But let's get back to those interview questions.
Yeah.
Are there any other tips or strategies we should keep in mind?
Always prepare some questions for the interviewer. It shows you're engaged and genuinely interested in the position.
That's a great point. What kind of questions should you ask?
Anything that shows you've done your homework and you're thinking long-term.
Okay.
Ask about the company culture, the team,
Yeah.
the types of projects or professional development opportunities. You can even use it to clarify anything about the role.
So it's a chance to gather information and make sure it's a good fit on both sides.
Yeah, agree.
Any final words of wisdom on how to really crush that control panel tester interview?
Be confident, be enthusiastic, be yourself.
Okay.
Show them you're passionate about this field and have the drive to excel. And remember, RoleCatcher is in your corner, ready to help you go from applicant to standout candidate.
Fantastic advice, it sounds like. With the right preparation and mindset, anyone can rock that control panel tester interview. But let's not forget the importance of continuous learning and development.
Yes.
This field is constantly evolving, so how can control panel testers stay ahead of the curve?
You're absolutely right, and that's where RoleCatcher can be a valuable resource even after you've landed the job. Its career guide provides insights on industry trends, emerging technologies, and relevant training programs. It's like having a personal career advisor in your pocket.
So it's not just about getting the job, but about building a successful and fulfilling career.
Right.
And RoleCatcher can be a valuable partner in that journey. Now, let's shift gears for a moment and talk about some specific examples of the tools and technologies that control panel testers might encounter in the field.
Sure, one common tool you'll find in almost every control panel tester's toolkit is the multimeter.
Okay.
It's a versatile instrument used for measuring voltage, current, and resistance.
It's like the Swiss Army knife of electrical testing.
Exactly. Another essential tool is the oscilloscope, which allows you to visualize electrical signals over time.
Okay.
This is particularly useful for troubleshooting complex circuits and identifying intermittent faults.
It's like having X-ray vision for electrical systems.
That's a great analogy. And then you have more specialized tools like loop calibrators, which are used for testing and calixing process control loops.
So it's like having a whole orchestra of instruments to help you diagnose and solve electrical problems.
Heck, you got it. And in addition to physical tools, control panel testers often use specialized software for tasks like simulation programming and documentation.
Okay.
For example, they might use software like AutoCAD Electrical for designing and documenting control panels, or PLC programming software for developing and testing automation logic.
It sounds like this field is a great blend of hands-on work and cutting-edge technology.
Absolutely. And with the increasing automation of industrial processes, the demand for skilled control panel testers is only going to grow, so it's a great time to be entering this field.
That's exciting to hear.
It is.
But let's go back to the interview for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked a lot about the technical aspects.
Yeah.
But what about the behavioral questions that might come up?
Great point. Behavioral questions are designed to assess your soft skills, like your communication teamwork and problem-solving abilities.
Okay.
Some common ones might include, tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult coworker, or describe a situation where you had to make a tough decision under pressure.
Those can be tricky.
They can.
Any tips on how to approach them?
The key is to use the STAR method. Situation, task, action, and result.
Okay.
Describe the situation you were in, the task you had to accomplish, the action you took, and the result of your actions.
Okay.
This provides a structured and concise way to illustrate your skills and experience.
So you're basically telling a story that highlights your strengths
Yeah,
and demonstrates how you've handled challenging situations in the past.
exactly. And it's important to choose examples that are relevant to the job you're interviewing for.
Right.
For example, if you're interviewing for a role that requires strong teamwork skills, you might share an example of a time you successfully collaborated with a team to overcome a challenging obstacle.
That makes sense. Now let's switch gears one last time
Okay.
and talk about the importance of continuous learning and development in this field.
Yeah.
As we mentioned earlier, technology is constantly evolving. So how can control panel testers stay ahead of the curve?
One of the best ways is to stay active in professional organizations and online communities.
Okay.
This allows you to network with other professionals, stay updated on industry trends, and learn about new technologies.
So it's like tapping into a collective knowledge base.
Exactly. And there are also many online courses and certifications available that can help you deepen your knowledge and expand your skill set.
Okay.
For example, you might pursue certifications in PLC programming, industrial networking, or functional safety.
So it's about investing in yourself and continuously seeking out new knowledge and skills.
Absolutely. The more you learn, the more valuable you become to employers, and the more opportunities you'll have to advance your career.
That's inspiring. It sounds like control panel testing is a dynamic and rewarding field with a lot of potential for growth.
Right.
But before we wrap up part one of this deep dive, let's go back to RoleCatcher for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about how it can help with interview prep and career planning,
Right.
but what about its resume builder?
Oh, yeah.
How can that be beneficial?
RoleCatcher's Resume Builder is a fantastic tool for creating a professional and impactful resume that highlights your skills and experience in the best possible light. It provides templates, formatting guidance, and even AI-powered suggestions to optimize your content for applicant tracking systems. ATS.
Wait, hold on. What are applicant tracking systems?
Applicant tracking systems are software programs used by many employers to screen resumes and applications.
Okay.
They use algorithms to scan for keywords and phrases that match the job description. If your resume doesn't have the right keywords, it might not even get seen by a human recruiter.
That's scary. So
Yeah.
using RoleCatcher's resume builder can help ensure that your resume makes it through those systems and lands in front of the right people.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon to help your resume stand out from the crowd.
That's incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
So it sounds like RoleCatcher really is a comprehensive resource for anyone looking to succeed in the control panel testing field, from prepping for the interview to building a long and fulfilling career. Stay tuned for part 2.
It really is. RoleCatcher can help you put your best foot forward at every stage.
So true. Now, picking up where we left off, let's talk about HMIs. Those touchscreen interfaces, they seem to be everywhere these days. What kind of questions might they ask about those in an interview?
Yeah, you're right. HMIs were becoming more and more a crucial one, right? Interviewers might ask something like, describe your experience with HMI systems, or what types of HMI software have you worked with? They want to see if you've got real-world experience beyond just knowing what an HMI is.
So you'd want to mention specific HMI brands,
Yeah.
like Siemens or Allen Bradley, and talk about the applications you've developed.
Precisely think about projects where you designed graphical interfaces for monitoring industrial processes or maybe even creating alarm systems for those critical applications.
And I imagine having a good eye for user experience is important too, after all. The HMI is how operators interact with the whole system.
Absolutely. You want to design HMIs that are intuitive and easy to use, providing clear information without overwhelming the operator. That requires an understanding of human factors and ergonomics, making technology work for people.
Okay, so it's a blend of technical know-how and a bit of design sense. Now, let's talk about making sure those control panels actually meet the project requirements. What kind of curveballs might they throw your way on that topic?
They might ask something like, how do you ensure control panel systems meet project requirements and specifications? This is where you showcase your ability to connect the dots between technical knowledge, attention to detail, and communication.
So it's like being a detective again, making sure everything lines up perfectly with the blueprint.
Exactly. First, you need to be crystal clear on the project requirements. That means poring over those design documents, electrical schematics, and any other relevant docs. Then you develop a rock-solid test plan that covers every nook and cranny of the system's functionality test cases, acceptance criteria, the whole 9 yards.
Sounds like a seriously organized process.
It is, and don't forget about communication. You'll need to keep the project team in the loop, providing regular updates on your progress and any hiccups you encounter along the way.
So being proactive, transparent, and a team player is key. Okay, now let's dive into something that might be intimidating for some electrical schematics. Those can look pretty daunting. How important is it to be comfortable with those, and what kind of questions might pop up?
Schematics are the roadmap to understanding a control panel. They show how everything's wired and connected.
Okay.
They'll definitely want to know how comfortable you are with those. They might ask, can you describe your familiarity with electrical schematics and diagrams, or even how would you troubleshoot a circuit using a schematic?
So it's not just about being able to read them, but also using them to solve problems.
Right. In the real world, precisely, you need to understand the symbols, the conventions, and annotations on those schematics. Be prepared to trace current flow, identify components, explain their functions, and maybe even suggest modifications.
Okay, so you need a pretty solid grasp of those schematics. Now, let's move on to documentation, another crucial part of the job. What should we know about that going into the interview?
Documentation is the lifeline of a control panel system. It ensures things can be maintained and troubleshooted effectively down the line. They might ask you, how do you ensure control panel systems are properly documented and labeled? Or what are some best practices for control panel documentation?
So they want to see if you understand the importance of clear and thorough documentation.
Absolutely. You might want to talk about using standardized templates, creating detailed wiring diagrams, labeling every single component, and meticulously documenting any changes or repairs made to the system.
It's all about making things easy to understand for anyone who might work on this system in the future.
Precisely, good documentation is like leaving a clear trail of breadcrumbs so that the system can be maintained and troubleshooted effectively throughout its entire lifespan.
Speaking of maintaining things effectively, let's circle back to safety for a sec. It's such a crucial aspect of this job.
Yeah.
What specific questions about safety standards and regulations might they ask?
You're right. Safety is non-negotiable in this field. Expect questions like, can you describe your experience with safety standards and regulations related to control panel systems? Or, what are some common safety hazards associated with control panels and how do you mitigate them?
So they're looking for someone who lives and breathes safety protocols.
Exactly. Be ready to rattle off those safety standards, OSHA, NFPA 70, the whole shebang, and be prepared to talk about specific safety procedures you follow religiously, like lockout, tagout procedures for isolating electrical energy, proper grounding techniques, and the use of personal protective equipment.
It's not just about knowing the rules, it's about demonstrating that safety is ingrained in your work habits.
Absolutely. You can even mention designing control panels with safety features in mind, like using circuit breakers, fuses, and safety relays to prevent overloads and short circuits.
Now let's talk about something that's becoming more and more important. Test automation. I've heard it can really streamline the testing process. What kind of questions might come up about that?
Test automation is a game changer in many industries, including control panel testing.
Okay.
They might ask, can you describe your experience with test automation tools for control panel systems? Or what are some of the benefits of using test automation in control panel testing?
So they're sniffing out your experience with specific tools and frameworks.
Exactly. If you've used tools like National Instruments Test Stand or LabVIEW, mention them and be prepared to discuss how you've used them to automate things like functional testing, regression testing, and performance testing.
And what about those benefits? What should you highlight?
Test automation can be a huge time saver. It can improve test coverage while reducing those pesky human errors. Plus, it helps ensure consistency and repeatability in testing, which is gold for quality control.
Okay, so it's about making the testing process more efficient, reliable, and accurate.
You got it. And don't forget, test automation frees up human testers to focus on those trickier areas like exploratory testing and usability testing, where human intuition is still key.
Now let's zoom out a bit and look at the career trajectory of a control panel tester. What are some of the stepping stones from entry level to those coveted senior roles?
It all starts with that hunger for knowledge. Take extra courses, chase those certifications, immerse yourself in industry conferences, devour those industry publications, never stop learning.
So it's like being a lifelong student of control panel wizardry.
Exactly. And don't underestimate the power of hands-on experience. Seek out diverse projects. Take on those challenging assignments. Volunteer for opportunities to learn new things. The more you do, the more you grow.
So it's about building that real-world experience and showing that you're not afraid to roll up your sleeves.
Absolutely, and never underestimate the power of networking. Building relationships with other professionals can open doors to unexpected opportunities and provide valuable insights and mentorship.
So it's about building your tribe within the control panel world.
Exactly. And as you gain experience and expertise, think about specializing in a specific area, PLC programming, industrial networking, functional safety. Find your niche and become a thought leader.
So it's about becoming the go-to expert in your chosen area of control panel mastery.
That's a great way to put it. And as you progress, you might even consider moving into a supervisory or management role, leading teams, managing projects, and making a broader impact on the organization.
So there's definitely room for upward mobility in this field.
Absolutely. With hard work, dedication, and a thirst for knowledge, you can achieve great things as a control panel tester.
That's incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
But let's circle back to those interview questions one more time. We've covered a lot of technical ground.
Okay.
But what about those tricky behavioral questions that can sometimes throw people off?
You're right. Those behavioral questions are designed to see how you tick your communication style, teamwork, problem-solving abilities, and leadership potential.
So it's about showcasing your personality and how you navigate different situations.
Exactly. One of the best ways to prepare is to think back on your work experience and identify specific examples that showcase your strengths in these areas.
So it's like building a mental library of stories that you can pull out during the interview.
Precisely. And remember the STAR method: situation, task, action, and result. When you're telling those stories, clearly describe the situation, the task, what actions you took, and the positive outcome that resulted it helps to keep your answers structured and concise.
So you're painting a picture of your capabilities with real-world examples.
Exactly. And be ready for follow-up questions. The interviewer might dig deeper, asking you to elaborate on certain points or explain your thought process in more detail.
So it's about thinking on your feet and being able to articulate your experiences in a way that truly resonates.
You got it. Now, let's talk about one specific type of behavioral question that often throws people off, the dreaded, "Tell me about a time you failed" question.
Ooh, that one can feel like a trap, but I imagine there's a way to spin it into a positive.
Absolutely. The key is to choose an example that highlights your ability to learn and grow from your mistakes.
So it's not about pretending you've never messed up,
Right.
but about showing that you're self-aware and use those experiences to become better.
Exactly. Be honest and transparent about the mistake you made, but then focus on what you learned from it and the steps you took to improve it shows the interviewer that you're accountable and committed to continuous improvement.
Okay, so it's about turning a negative experience into a positive learning opportunity. Now, let's tackle another challenging behavioral question. Tell me about a time you had a conflict with a coworker. That one can be a bit delicate.
You're right, conflict is inevitable in any workplace, and interviewers want to see how you handle those tricky interpersonal situations.
So it's about demonstrating your diplomacy and conflict resolution skills.
Precisely when answering this question, keep it positive. Focus on your communication skills, your ability to find common ground, and your willingness to compromise.
So it's about showing that you're a team player who can navigate challenging situations with grace and professionalism.
Exactly. You might even mention specific techniques or strategies you use to resolve the conflict, like active listening, respectful communication, or focusing on shared goals.
It's all about showing that you can turn conflict into a catalyst for positive change. Now, let's talk about one of the final questions that often comes up in an interview. Do you have any questions for us?
This is your chance to shine. Asking thoughtful questions shows that you're genuinely interested in the position and the company.
So what are some good questions to ask?
Ask about the company culture, the team dynamics, the types of projects they're tackling, or the opportunities for professional development. Show them you've done your homework and are thinking long term.
It's about gathering information and making sure it's a good fit for both sides.
Exactly, and don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions about anything discussed during the interview or to reiterate your enthusiasm for the opportunity.
So it's about ending the interview on a high note, leaving a lasting positive impression.
Precisely. Now let's shift gears for a moment and talk about the exciting world of technology and control panel testing. How do you see the role of a control panel tester evolving with all the rapid advancements that are happening?
It's an exciting time to be in this field. I imagine that automation AI and the Internet of Things are really going to shake things up even more.
You're absolutely right. As more and more processes become automated and interconnected, the demand for skilled control panel testers who understand these technologies is going to skyrocket.
So staying ahead of the curve and constantly learning about new technologies is key.
Exactly. For example, control panel testers might need to become fluent in programming PLCs that can talk to cloud-based systems or integrate seamlessly with IoT sensors.
It sounds like the future of control panel testing is bright, but it will require adaptability and a willingness to embrace new technologies.
Absolutely. Those who are willing to invest in their professional development and stay ahead of the curve will be the ones who thrive in this evolving field.
Now let's dive a little deeper into the Internet of Things, or IoT. How is this interconnected world impacting control panel testing?
IoT is revolutionizing how we interact with and control physical systems. We can now connect sensors, actuators, and other devices to the internet, allowing for remote monitoring and control.
So it's like having a network of intelligent devices constantly talking to each other and to us.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for control panel testing. Testers might now need to grapple with systems that involve wireless communication protocols, cloud-based data storage, and those remote monitoring and control aspects.
It sounds like IoT is throwing a whole new set of challenges and opportunities at control panel testers.
Absolutely. Those who can adapt and develop the necessary skills will be highly sought after.
Now let's talk about another game changer, artificial intelligence, or AI. How do you see AI impacting the world of control panel testing?
AI is poised to transform many industries, and control panel testing is no exception. AI algorithms can automate tasks, analyze mountains of data, and even predict potential problems before they happen.
So it's like having a super smart assistant helping you test and maintain those control panels.
Exactly. AI could analyze sensor data to detect anomalies that might signal a problem, or it could optimize control systems for better performance and energy efficiency.
Wow, AI could really change the way we approach control panel testing in the future.
Absolutely. Those who are comfortable with AI concepts and techniques will have a definite edge.
Now let's shift gears for a moment and talk about continuous learning and development in this rapidly evolving field. How can control panel testers keep their skills sharp and stay ahead of the curve?
One of the best ways is to be an active part of professional organizations and online communities. It's a fantastic way to network with other professionals, stay updated on industry trends, and learn about new technologies.
So it's about building your network and tapping into the collective wisdom of the industry.
Exactly. And there are tons of online courses and certifications out there that can help you deepen your knowledge and expand your skill set. Think certifications in PLC programming, industrial networking, or functional safety.
So it's about investing in yourself and continuously seeking out new knowledge and skills.
Absolutely. The more you learn, the more valuable you become to employers and the more opportunities you'll have to advance your career.
That's inspiring. It sounds like control panel testing is a dynamic and rewarding field with a lot of potential for growth. But before we wrap up part 2 of this deep dive, let's go back to RoleCatcher for a moment.
Okay.
We've talked about how it can help with interview prep and career planning. But what about its resume builder? How can that be beneficial?
RoleCatcher's Resume Builder is a fantastic tool for creating a professional and impactful resume that highlights your skills and experience in the best possible light. It provides templates, formatting guidance, and even AI-powered suggestions to optimize your content for applicant tracking systems, ATS.
Wait, hold on. What are applicant tracking systems?
Applicant tracking systems are software programs used by many employers to screen resumes and applications. They use algorithms to scan for keywords and phrases that match the job description. If your resume doesn't have the right keywords, it might not even get seen by a human recruiter.
That's a bit scary. So using RoleCatcher's Resume Builder can help ensure that your resume makes it past those digital gatekeepers and lands in front of the right people.
Exactly. It's like having a secret weapon to help your resume stand out from the crowd.
That's incredibly valuable. So it sounds like RoleCatcher really is a comprehensive resource for anyone looking to succeed in the control panel testing field, from prepping for the interview to building a long and fulfilling career. Stay tuned for part 3. It really is amazing how much RoleCatcher offers to help people advance their careers. Now let's get back to the tools of the trade. We talked about multimeters before, but there are so many different kinds. How do you pick the right one for the job?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's all about finding the right tool for the task first. Think about what you'll be measuring: AC or DC voltage, what range of currents, how much accuracy do you need, match those needs to the multimeter's capabilities.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Not at all. Then think about features. Do you need a built-in data logger, a backlit display for those dimly lit panels? Maybe a rugged design if you're working in tough environments? Choose a multimeter that's both functional and user-friendly.
And of course, budget plays a role too.
Absolutely. Multimeters can range from super affordable to quite pricey. Find that sweet spot where features, functionality, and cost align with your needs.
Okay, makes sense. Now, we've talked a lot about PLCs. Those programmable logic controllers, they seem pretty central to modern control panels. What should someone know about them going into an interview?
PLCs are the brains of the operation. Think of them as specialized computers that control and automate those industrial processes. They take in information from sensors, process it based on their programming, and then send out commands to actuators, things like motors, valves, and relays.
So they're like the decision makers making sure everything runs smoothly.
Exactly. And they're used everywhere: manufacturing, energy transportation, even building automation. You'll need to be familiar with different types of PLCs and their applications.
Are there any brands that come up a lot?
Definitely. Allen Bradley, Siemens, Schneider, Electric Omron. Those are some big names. Each has its own programming language and software, so be prepared to talk about the specific PLCs you've worked with.
So it's about being adaptable and showing that you can handle different PLC platforms.
You got it now. Let's say they ask you to describe specific tasks you'd perform when testing a control panel that involves PLCs. One common task is verifying the PLC program, making sure it's doing what it's supposed to do.
So you're checking that the PLC is correctly programmed to handle all those complex tasks.
Exactly. You might review the code, simulate the program, or even download it to the PLC and run it in a test environment.
Sounds pretty meticulous.
It requires a good understanding of the PLC's language and the specific application it's controlling.
Now, what about testing the inputs and outputs? Those seem pretty crucial to making sure everything is functioning correctly.
You're right. The inputs to the PLC come from sensors that monitor things like temperature, pressure level, and flow, giving the PLC the information it needs to make decisions.
So the inputs are like the senses of the system telling the PLC what's going on.
Perfect analogy. And the outputs from the PLC control those actuators carrying out the actions in the process.
So the outputs are how the PLC interacts with the real world, making things happen.
Precisely. During testing, you might simulate inputs and verify that the outputs are correct, making sure the PLC is responding appropriately to different scenarios.
Okay, so you're basically putting the PLC through its paces in a controlled environment.
Exactly. And of course, there's troubleshooting. PLCs can have glitches too, and you need to be able to identify and fix those problems.
So it's like being a detective again, figuring out what's causing the issue and how to resolve it.
You got it. That might involve analyzing error codes, monitoring PLC variables, or using debugging tools to trace the logic flow.
Wow. Sounds like PLC troubleshooting can be pretty challenging.
It can be, but it's also incredibly rewarding when you solve a complex problem and make sure those critical industrial processes are running smoothly.
Okay, let's talk about safety. One last time, we've touched on it throughout this deep dive, but it's so important, especially when you're dealing with high voltage systems. What are some absolute must-knows for staying safe when working with control panels?
You're right, safety is paramount. The golden rule is to always de-energize the control panel before doing any work on it, disconnect it from the power source, and double-check that there's no voltage present, no exceptions.
So it's about eliminating that risk of electrical shock before you even touch anything.
Absolutely, but even when it's de-energized, treat it with the same caution as if it were live-use insulated tools. Wear your personal protective equipment, PPE, like a champ, and follow those safety procedures religiously.
So it's about being constantly vigilant and never letting your guard down even for a second.
Exactly. Know those safety regulations like the back of your hand, OSHA NFPA 70, and understand how they apply to your work environment.
Okay, safety first, always. Now, you mentioned PPE before. What are some of the essential pieces of gear that every control panel tester should have in their arsenal?
Safety glasses are a must. You don't want any stray sparks or debris getting in your eyes. Gloves are crucial for protecting your hands from electrical shock and sharp edges. Depending on the environment, you might need hearing protection and even flame-resistant clothing, especially if there's a risk of arc flash.
Speaking of arc flash,
Mhm.
what exactly is that and how do you protect yourself from it?
Arc flash is a serious electrical explosion. Think intense heat, blinding light, and powerful pressure. It can cause severe burns, blindness, or even worse. You need specialized flame-resistant clothing that can withstand those extreme conditions.
That sounds incredibly dangerous.
It is. Know the potential arc flash hazards in your work environment and follow the safety procedures meticulously. There's no room for shortcuts when it comes to arc flash protection.
All right, safety message received loud and clear. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to touch on one final aspect of working with control panels: lockout procedures.
Lockout tagout, the unsung hero of workplace safety. It's a system that prevents equipment from being accidentally energized while it's being serviced or repaired.
So you're basically creating a foolproof system to make sure nobody accidentally flips the switch and sends electricity coursing through the panel while someone's working on it.
Exactly. It involves physically locking out the energy source and tagging it with clear information about who performed the lockout and why it's a visual and physical barrier that prevents accidental energization.
Okay, so lockout tagout is all about making sure that the power stays off until it's absolutely safe to turn it back on.
Precisely. It's a simple procedure that can prevent serious injuries or even fatalities. Never underestimate the importance of lockout tagout.
This deep dive has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much ground, from understanding the core responsibilities of a control panel tester to navigating those tricky interview questions and even exploring the future of the field.
And we've seen how RoleCatcher can be an invaluable companion throughout this journey, providing the tools and guidance you need to succeed.
Remember, you have the power to shape your career path. Be bold, be curious, and never stop learning. And with RoleCatcher in your corner, you're well on your way to becoming a control panel master.